Am I the asshole for making a fuss over a can of soda? The other night I went to a pub with a group of friends. A new place, none had ever been there. As we walked in and asked for a table, the waiter made jokes like, "Wow, did your boyfriends let you go out alone? I'd always keep you locked up, you're too cute, no? Don't you have a boyfriend? Better for me." You could see that he said it jokingly. The pub is located in an area of the city where there are only pubs, bars, nightclubs. The staff tries to attract customers in every way, even with that kind of jokes, but for some reason it rubbed me the wrong way. I said nothing, but pulled a face. The waiter saw me and told me that he was just joking, there was no need to be offended. I rolled my eyes and said, whatever, just to not start a sterile argument that I wasn't offended, just annoyed. We sat down at the table and ordered drinks. I ordered a can of soda, as did another friend. When the orders arrived at the table, I saw that my can of soda had already been opened, while my friend's was still sealed. I told the waiter that I wanted an unopened can, and he was defensive, saying that I offended him very much with my insinuations. He said that for him opening bottles and cans are automatic gestures. When I pointed out that my other friend's was sealed, he replied that the orders for the table were many, he hadn't seen it. By then, other patrons of the pub were watching the scene. I stood my ground, demanding an unopened can, and the waiter replied that it was absurd to waste a can of perfectly good soda and insisted that I drink that, but I said no. I finally got the unopened can, but we were pretty much ignored by the waiter for the rest of the evening, and when we asked for a second round of drinks we waited a lot. My friends got pissed at me, saying that I spoiled the mood and made the waiter boycott our table. In my opinion I wasn't, my request was reasonable and the way the waiter reacted set off alarm bells for me. Nothing happened, but better be safe than sorry. But now I'm wondering if I overreacted. Edit after reading the comments. My friends say I overreacted because we came as a group and left as a group. Even if my soda was tampered, they'd always be with me. I understand their point of view, but I will reflect on whether to go out with them again, because they still don't understand mine. It paid for all my drinks, even for the soda I didn't drink, to avoid further exacerbating the situation. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents and my husband that I don't want to name my daughter after the sister I never knew? My parents had a daughter before me, Summer. She was born with cancer and died when she was only 5 weeks old. I was born 2 years later and her memory was very strong throughout my life. My parents weren't great parents to me because they were still in very heavy grief and it made our relationship complicated. I remember they cried on her birthday every year and they also cried on most of mine and she was mentioned at every celebration. I remember for a while really wanting to hear more about her, but at some point all the mentions of her were too much, it felt suffocating and I felt less important. When they'd meet new people, Summer was the child they mentioned first, and the one they talked most about. Someone would ask what grade I was in or how old I was and they'd say Summer would be in 4th grade or Summer would have been 13 today. When I graduated high school I asked that my parents not to mention Summer during the celebration after. We had a dinner with family and a couple of my friends but not a full-blown party. And they were so angry at me for wanting Summer forgotten. I took some time from them in college but was racked with guilt and we ended up back in touch. I got married to my husband Kale last year and now we're expecting a girl. My parents brought up how amazing it would be for us to name our daughter Summer and my husband was 100% on board. He was pretty much agreeing before I had a chance to react. When I did talk to him he was shocked I had any doubts and was ready to go full steam ahead. I told him I wanted our daughter to have her own name and I didn't want her to carry the weight of the Summer who never got the chance to grow up. And so was all her grandparents really wanted to talk about. He said he understood, but to think of how loved our daughter would feel. And he knows I think Summer is a beautiful name, because I do. But the history. I told my parents I wanted my daughter to have her own name and they cried. They didn't really comment. They then asked was I going to change my mind. This was a few days after. And I said no. But then my parents and husband were talking and wanted to try and change my mind. They brought a list of pros to me on why our daughter should be Summer, and I told them I disagreed with the list. They argued back and told me Summer deserves to be honored. I said my daughter deserves to live life as herself. Kale said she would still be able to, and the name isn't that uncommon that my sister would be the only person to think of. My parents told me to think of what my sister would want and how I love my sister and miss her every day. For some reason that broke me. I started to cry out of nowhere and told the three of them I did not want to name my daughter after a sister I never knew. I'm not totally sure what happened directly after I was so upset. But Kale and my parents think I was cruel to say it like that. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my girlfriend at a car dealership and telling her to grow up? Me, 27 years old male, have been dating my girlfriend, 25 years old female, for 3 years. My girlfriend has always had really bad and unmanaged anxiety, as well as codependency. Her family has always coddled her and held her hand about these things rather than teaching her how to be independent. Meanwhile, I have always been informed and has to figure things out myself and grow up early on. She still sometimes acts like a child, and as our relationship progresses, this is starting to become unattractive and exhausting. She always needs me to do everything with her and has zero self-confidence or believes she can do things herself. Recently, she wanted a new car. She's never bought a car before, so I spent whole weekend helping her visit dealerships and choose a car. The day she went to pick up the car she picked, I wasn't available, so she went with her dad. At the time, the dealership had a limit on how much you can put down via a debt card, so she put down half and needed to come back with the rest via a check. I was unaware of this. The dealership is about 25 miles from our home, so it wasn't close. A few weeks go by and we get invited to my friend's birthday at a brewery. She tells me we need to stop at the dealership because they called and they wanted the rest of the deposit. I was confused and I was asked, why did you wait so long? And she said she wasn't gonna go unless me or her dad could go with her, and he wasn't available. I said okay, whatever, we will stop there. We get to the place and all she needs to do is walk in and hand the guy a check and leave. So since parking was bad there, I suggested I drop her off, and while she is handing in the check, I can turn the car around so we can just keep going. Well, rather than going inside, she starts crying and panicking about how she can't go inside unless I go with her. I told her no, I'm not going to do that, and that she needs to start believing in herself and facing her fears, and that she can't depend on me to be there every time, or wait till I'm available. She starts crying and says she really needs her partner right now, and I told her no, she needs to grow up, be an adult, and learn to handle some stuff on her own. I told her letting her depend on me to be her buffer for the word isn't fair to her or me. She fussed but went in there and did it. And when she came out, she said I'm an asshole for not being supportive when she needed me. My girlfriend has bad anxiety and refuses to do anything on her own or be in any social situation. She needed to drop off a check at the dealership, and rather than going in with her, I told her to go herself when she cried. I told her to grow up. Edit. I would like to add she's against therapy and says she doesn't need therapy when she has me. So I've become her crutch, and it's exhausting. Am I the a-hole for laughing at my girlfriend when she suggested I should offer to pay the bill for her family? My girlfriend, 21 years old female, and I, 23 years old male, have been together for a year and a half. Her family is super sweet and I get along great with them. Now my girlfriend's dad is pretty well off. Every time I've gone out to dinner with her family, he always foots the bill. Her family has been great to me. They always welcomed me in their house. I went on a vacation with them back in the winter. Her parents paid for our hotel for the entire week. Her dad gave her money for food, granted it was for her brother and myself. I also only paid for half of my flight because my GF offered to pay for the other half. The only thing I really had to pay for is food a couple of days out of the trip, which my GF pitched in and helped with too. This past weekend my GF, myself, her younger brother, and her dad went out for brunch. I was spending the weekend with her anyway, so she invited me to join them. Before we left, her and I were talking and she mentioned how maybe I should offer to pay for brunch, as in for all four of us. She assured me that her dad would 1000% refuse to let me pay, but he would probably really appreciate and respect me for offering. Now here's where I may sound like an age, but I honestly laughed at her suggesting this. I told her I would offer to cover her and my portion of the bill, but to expect me to offer to cover the entire bill is absurd. Sure, I work a full-time job and all of that, but I have my own bills and stuff to worry about too, and she wants me to offer to pay for a $1.50-ish brunch? She told me that if her dad accepted, which she could 100% guarantee that he wouldn't, that she would send me half for the bill. I continued to laugh and told her I'm not doing that, I'll offer to pay for our half and that's it. I asked her if the roles were reversed, if she would offer to pay for the bill for my family. 8 of us in total including my GF, she said that's completely different. That's 8 people, not 4. We both have very different upbringings, in terms of the situation I mentioned about paying the bill. She grew up with a decently well-off family where they would constantly argue on who would pay the bill, because everyone in her family would always offer out of courtesy. I grew up very differently as I come from a family that was not financially well off. If someone offered to foot the bill, you just sit back and let them do it. When we went to brunch, I offered to cover both her and my portion of the bill. Her dad immediately refused and covered the whole bill. She gave me a "I told you so" look. She thinks I was an a-hole for how I reacted to the situation, and says I should have trusted her. She told me she needs some space because my reaction to the whole situation is kind of a turn-off to her, and she needs to think about things. Am I the a-hole?
You weren't obligated to offer, but yeah, you are the a-hole for not having any modicum of courtesy, generosity, given how much your father has treated you to. Do you have no shame or self-respect? And your girlfriend was right that he wouldn't let you pay, plots no risk to your finances since she offered to pay half if she was wrong. You sound like a leech. A selfish one too. Don't be surprised if your girlfriend's attitude towards you is seriously damaged by this. I grew up poor and I would never have acted like you. You are the a-hole. You are not generous at all, and your girlfriend and her family are. Not even just that, but you laughed at her for even mentioning it. That's messed up, man. Seriously messed up. I can see why she is reconsidering. So her family has paid for you many times, and you can't even entertain the idea of offering to pay even though you probably wouldn't even have to do it? Huge, you are the a-hole.
Am I the a-hole for talking to my dad after my stepmom said not to? My stepmom hired a nanny to watch my younger siblings. My dad didn't love the idea, but he was okay with it. The first day I met her, she tried to tell me to come into the dining room for lunch. I told her no thanks, that she wasn't required to cook for me, because I'm not one of her charges. She got an attitude with me and told me I needed to listen to her, and I told her no. I talked to my dad about it, and he said he would take care of it. My stepmom asked me the next day to come directly to her if there were any more issues with the nanny. She said that would be more efficient because my dad just talks to her to tell her to talk to the nanny. I acknowledged what she said but didn't actually promise to do that. I did have further problems with the nanny after that. I came home from work one night, and she asked me where I had been. I was annoyed by her tone, and told her to mind her business. She told me not to be disrespectful. I told her she's in my house and should respect me if she wants respect from me. I ended up telling my dad about all this. The nanny has been fired, and my stepmom is really upset. She told me it hurt her feelings I made an agreement with her but didn't honor it. I didn't actually promise not to talk to my dad, just acknowledged that she asked me not to. I also feel I should be able to talk to my dad whenever. But she does feel betrayed, and I never actually gave her a chance to handle it herself. Am I an a-hole?
Not a hole. You don't mention your age, but if you're old enough to have a job, you're old enough to not have to answer to the nanny. She's your sibling's caregiver, you're not. Your stepmom also should accept that your father is your primary parent. You're more comfortable going to him with matters that upset you. Not the a-hole. The nanny overstepped her authority, and your stepmom didn't put a stop to it, so what did she expect? I'm guessing that your stepmom was trying to keep any issues away from your dad so that she could keep the nanny that he wasn't too keen on. While I can understand that, she didn't fix the problem. Your dad did. Not the a-hole. You have every right to talk to your dad about anything. It's his home, he's your dad. Just be upfront and tell stepmother that you feel free to talk to your dad about anything, so please don't make a request against that, politely but firmly.